In Zion's history of growth was the addition of 78 members from the Jerusalem Lutheran Church located at Lunds, a rural area about 8 miles south of Shawano. This historic parish was founded in 1875 by Norwegian immigrants. It was forced to close its doors in 1968 because it could not support a move from a part-time to a full-time pastor. Most of the Jerusalem members joined Zion at that time and continue to be active members of our church, adding greatly to the life and ministry of Zion. The Jerusalem story is really the story of pioneer America. Immigrants, Norwegian farmers in this case, left their native land in the 1800s and sailed to America looking for a better life. Rich and available land in Midwestern America was a major attraction. Many homesteaded on the rich land in the Lunds area and began clearing the land, building their homes, and started farming. Reverend E.J. Hami emigrated from Norway with his parents in 1854. He attended seminary in St. Louis and was the Johnny Appleseed of Norwegian Lutheran congregations in Wisconsin. He started new congregations among Norwegian immigrants in Winchester and Sheboygan before coming to the Shawano area. He was the founding pastor of the Jerusalem parish, but also founded the nearby city of Wittenberg and the Hami Home for Orphans and Elderly in that city, all thriving today. The Jerusalem church was constructed from logs cut from the forests in the area, solid mortised logs that still exist under the white siding of the building. Across the road is the hitching shed, where horses and buggies were tied up during services. Many descendants of the Jerusalem pioneer family still live in the area and maintain the church buildings and grounds in mint condition. Some of them recently shared their early memories of that congregation.
Well, when they took the siding off the church, there was it was logs, and they claimed them logs were about like the day they put them together. They had, what was it called, dovetail, Bub? Mm-hmm. Dovetail, corners, yeah. And those logs were just like the day they laid them in there. They were just as solid as could be, and they were really good. Yeah, and a lot of is coming to church. My folks got married here. Eileen's folks were married here. I think all of they were sitting here, I think, were married here at our church here.
Especially you.
Yeah. Now we got married here. We had Pastor Munson was our pastor, and his wife was supposed to sing. Anyway, we got all marching in, and we got in front of the altar, and no minister. So we stood there and waited for the minister, and my brother Harold back here, the night of the rehearsal, he said, Cliff, he said, I don't think you should get married, you should buy a John Deere, he said. So anyway, he stood by me, and he nudged me, and he said, you can still buy that John Deere.
Okay. Well, my parents and my grandparents were all members here too, and the grandparents, the good charter members. I lived, not too far, about a mile from the church here. One thing I was thinking the night, one thing I remember is always looking toward the sunset, and you could always see the silhouette of the church. It was always so pretty, it's all the different seasons. And at the time when we closed, it was hard for everybody. And at that time I was the Sunday school superintendent at that time. And there were quite a few kids, but it was just, it was hard to keep going because there wasn't enough, and then every, had wanted to go on their own too. But then the pastor came here every week. But we had a lot of things about Vacation Bible School too when we were little. And the one thing I guess I won't forget is the one neighbor boy here, he used to throw frogs at us. These little frogs at the girls. We were always scared.
I remember hearing often from my mother about how she taught what they called Norskskole, Norwegian school here every summer at the church. And I understand it must have been like our Vacation Bible School. It was 2 or 3 weeks. And everybody learned the catechism and their Bible study in Norwegian, of course. And she always talked so much about that. But I guess my greatest memory is their wedding. Yeah, I played "Oh Perfect Love" till I didn't know where to go from there. And pretty soon, Mrs. Munson stood behind me singing. Everything went fine, just like we'd always practiced that way.
Then we used to have, none was our piano player and a Sunday school teacher. And she was very strict. Us boys couldn't play around. She was all business.
I remember when I was younger, my mother was the organist in the church here for 20 years, but when I was, probably preteen, she always used to set us in the front pew, and the 5 of us would sit there, and we did not snicker or push or shove, because my mother really had a glare, and and she was facing us as she played the organ. Of course, I was married here, went to catechism here, and was baptized here. I remember Pastor Blum, we were talking one time about what heaven was like, and he wanted us all to say what we thought we would, how it would be in heaven. And we sat and didn't know what to say, and finally he said, you know, when I get to heaven, I'm going fishing. And
Remember when my dad, my parents talking about so many families that lost so many children within a short time with black diphtheria. And I have 4 uncles and aunts that are buried that my grandma lost within 2 years, and they were between 2 years old and 14 years old. And I remember them saying that they couldn't even take the bodies out through the door because they were, like, she was in one room with them, trying to keep the rest of the family from catching this. So they'd have to take them out through the window. And some of them were in the wintertime, and they'd have to put the bodies in the granary until it was warm enough to dig the graves. And they had one that survived. All 5 children at the time had this black diphtheria. And the one they thought was going to die in this, whatever, this bubble of, kind of chokes them, burst at that time. So one lived.
I remember how we used to go up, we used to get up to Lunds with horse and buggy years ago, you know. And everything was pretty exciting, and we used to have our confirmation and things going on up there. Mm-hmm. And Reverend Boogie, I think, was the first minister that we had. Because I came from Norway when I was only 9 years old.
Oh, you came from Norway? Uh-huh.
And I remember that I had real red, rosy cheeks, and wherever I went, that's all I ever heard, what red cheeks. Oh, I hated that.
You just went to...
We used to have, we called it a Norwegian school for 2 weeks that we used to have at the church in the summertime. No, no, that was before my time. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not very good at remembering too much.
Oh.
The dinners with the...
I guess I'm just getting too old.
Remember all the children?
Was this the time when the men sat on one side of the church?
Yeah, and the women all wore hats with a lot of flowers on. The minister said one time it looked like a flower garden.
At Lunds, do you remember the preaching in Norwegian language?
Oh, yeah, I think he would preach Norwegian language. Was it one Sunday, then in English the next time? Or how was that? I think so. Mm-hmm. We had to get up there and speak our piece, you know, and we'd have to practice at home, and so that we'd know. And first I'd say a piece in Norwegian, and I could say one in English, so I thought I was pretty smart, you know.
The church is still occasionally used for special services such as funerals and weddings. Also, 3 times each year, homecoming services are held where families gather once again to worship in this historic building, just as they had over the past 125 years. Important part of Zion's heritage.